Amber Butcher of Theatre of Fashion. Welcome to In Conversation at the V&A. I'm going to be talking to Matthew Butcher of multidisciplinary studio Postworks and artist Melissa Appleton about their collaborative work that fuses the ideas of architecture, set design, performance and the city.
I think it sort of has something to do with also like the definition of architecture, because people now think that architecture has to result in a building happening for it to be valid, you know, or that's certainly an idea that's come about like maybe since the sort of, you know, sort of 80s onwards, that it always has to manifest itself as a building. And I think if you look back to like the early modernists, and then you perhaps even look back to like, you know, certainly like Russian, like, you know, the constructivists, and then further back to like 16th, 17th century, I think there was a much like broader sense of architecture that it encompassed writing, you know, drawing, you know, kind of sort of a multitude of kind of abstractions of you know, of the ideas of architecture into different forms, and it's not about having a kind of solid building necessarily at the end. Yeah. Whereas now, like, architecture is so construction-led that that's kind of what's happened, I think. So people talk about this kind of practice like it's really new, but I mean it's sort of like hundreds of years old.
There is an idea that runs through lots of different schools of a kind of, that's I think very much a kind of leftover from modernism, this idea that architecture is a serious practice and theatre is associated with a much more frivolous act. And like temporary, or it's, you know, it's decoration, or it's camp in some way, and all of those elements which are diminish the purity of architecture. And I think that's extremely sad, because it denies a playfulness, that theatricality. Like,
you know, the idea of theatre illusion, you know, that things can have a kind of real and unreal element, and or have a dreamlike element, or whatever, you know, that is seen as a kind of negative thing, whereas I think we think that's really important, you know. Yeah. Looking at the whole city as a kind of tableau, or a kind of space for performance to happen, and so, like, just to give you a few examples, in that piece, which is sort of in this, which you could say is like a cityscape in a sort of vitrine. We looked at certain buildings which we felt like operated as kind of characters, you know, buildings that are anthropomorphized, such as like the Hayward Gallery, for instance, and then which kind of became a character in itself with a set of kind of human qualities, but then also spaces which somehow enforce or kind of force people into some kind of performance, even in going about their kind of everyday lives. So, you know, familiar sort of urban things like ramps or staircases, or, you know, pieces of the city like that, which sit there kind of dormantly and perhaps unseen a lot of the time, but actually we were kind of like excited by the idea that they're actually kind of forcing people all the time into some kind of subconscious performance, right, in the kind of everyday sense. And so that's the kind of core idea of that piece of work, that the city operates as a stage, you know, in a very different way to you know, like a classic theatre, or where you're setting that performance up in a really hermetic, sort of sealed space. Yeah.
This has been Theatre of Fashion in conversation with Matthew Butcher of Postworks and artist Melissa Appleton. You can find more information at theatreoffashion.co.uk, and also post-works.com, and also rittlecalling.co.uk as well. I recommend you check that out. So thank you for joining us, and a special thank you to Matthew and Melissa.
Thanks.